So good morning, everyone, again. So again, welcome, and again, thank you for joining today morning. And as usual, we will start with a short breathing exercise, meditation to quiet our mind, to bring our mind moment present here. So just try to relax, make yourself comfortable. And feel the weight of your body on cushion or chair in the surroundings. And as you inhale and exhale naturally, bring your attention to the breath. Observe it mindfully and be aware as you breathe in, observing mindfully, being aware you are breathing in. And as you exhale, observing mindfully and being aware that you are exhaling. Simply just watching and being aware. Then we can reflect and contemplate that when our mind is overwhelmed by negative emotions, such as strong desire, anger, and ignorance, how it disturbs our mind, how it agitates our mind, how it makes our mind restless. And with such restless, agitated, and disturbed mind, there is no more inner peace, calm, and joy in that moment. Regardless of whatever external conditions are. So with our own experience, it's quite clear we cannot find the real inner peace, joy, and calmness unless we reduce and overcome those excessive emotions. And those excessive emotions does not go away by just wishing for them to go away. But we need to cultivate the opposite mind of those excessive emotions that can counteract them, that can act as an antidote to those defilements. In such positive state of mind, such as wisdom, that can act as an antidote, and be cultivated and fully developed only through meditation practice. Therefore, we need to meditate, contemplate, practice correctly, continuously. For that, we need to learn, study, inspire ourselves, engage, encourage ourselves to practice, and be reminded important those practices, meditation. And that is why we have come here together. Be reminded the importance of such practice, meditation, so we can engage in our everyday life as much practice meditation as possible. if our mind is more calm, peaceful, joyful, not only it helps us, it also helps everyone that we meet, encounter, to create such environment. And also we'll be able to be more help benefit to others when our mind is more calm, peaceful, and joyful instead of restless, agitated, and disturbed. Through practice meditation, when you're able to reduce those disturbing, agitating, restless mind, it helps us to bring temporary peace and ultimate happiness. Peace. Also, it helps us and give us tools to be more help and benefit to others in short term, long term. And may us all coming together here, giving our precious time, energy, resources, coming to listen, to reflect, contemplate, and give a discussion. May all this become cause and condition to transform our heart, our mind, to become more kind, compassion, more wise with more wisdom, more patient or tolerant, more content, and eventually to achieve our highest potential, the fully awakened state. The Buddhahood. So not only we can be help and benefit to others, but we can be greatest help and benefit to others and oneself. And not only few, but to each and every sentient being. Okay? Until I'm like in Buddha, the love, man, the Thubten, and Mother Mary, Akre, relation with Buddha. Yeah, become a Buddha in order to benefit us. Sange, Santo, Nam, Santo, Pato, Dani, Jasu, Sagi, Shunye, Gile, Sonam, Yola, Kenge, Sange, Tuha, Sange, Santo, Nam, Santo, Pato, Dani, Jasu, Sagi, Shunye, Gile, Sonam, Lord changes on get and yet within the thought and the promise and the infinite is there for them their lot of so the purpose of studying the Dharma and meditating and practicing the Dharma is because nobody wants to suffer and we all want to be happy. You know? No sentient beings want to suffer. Each and every sentient being want to be happy. So, we always try to find a way to be happy and to avoid suffering and cause of suffering. And we always try to gather or accomplish or achieve happiness and cause of happiness. And of course, what is cause of happiness? What is the cause of suffering? That has been something that has the humankind has been trying to find out. What's the real what is the real cause of suffering? What is the real cause of happiness? What is the true happiness? So that has been a subject of exploration, exploring. Is a subject of something that has been um, curious, discussions, um, for thousands of years, and it continues to be. Still, people still trying to find. And so, according to many of the school of thought that have developed over many thousand years, you know, at the time of Buddha or even before the time of Buddha, a lot of those great scholars, thinkers, meditators, have found that our own affective emotions, such as strong, what we call desire or craving or attachment, anger, and ignorance, those are you know, the root of our unhappiness, our suffering, pain. So, so that is something that they have discovered, and then they have developed a practice meditations to overcome those, reduce and overcome those affecting emotions, through different type of meditation, different technique of meditation. You know, um, so also, Buddha also learned most of those all of the meditation technique that was available at that time. He learned with some of the greatest meditator master at his time. You know, um, he perfected them. You know, and then again when he asked if there is more advanced practice meditation, one of the teachers said, I don't have anything more than that I can share. This all, and then he sent to another teacher, who has a little bit more higher meditation. Then he went and he also studied with him meditative practice. He perfected that. Again, he wasn't fully satisfied with that because he found with such meditations, definitely it was able to reduce the attachment, anger, ignorance, and those other afflictive emotions. Through those meditation techniques, it was able to reduce them, and through those meditation techniques, it was able to stop from those afflictive emotions from arising when you are in that deep meditation. But when you are not that deep meditations, through that kind of single-pointed meditations, when you are not that deep meditations, then when you are in the world, engaged in the world, and then again when you encounter certain cosmic conditions, then again, the delusions seems to arise, So it doesn't seem that method was the method to destroy the delusion completely, where it never arise again, where it never manifests, no matter what condition you encounter, So that was something that he was not satisfied with that meditation, and he was looking for you know, a, a method, if there is a method that can overcome those delusions completely. Once you are able to overcome, then it never manifests, never arises, And then in his own through his practice and meditations, of course, that he in many other past life he has learned those, but then through that imprint and all of that, he in his 6 year meditations, practice. Um, he realized the selflessness or emptiness or the ultimate nature of self and other phenomena. And when you have that realization, direct realization of such selflessness or emptiness, then he was able to see with that direct realization, then it was able to cut the very root of all those delusion, affective emotions. And by being able to cut the very root of those delusions or affective emotions, then there's no more arising of those delusions, no matter what condition. And therefore, he found, there is a total cessation and total liberation from all those affective emotions. And with that, his own experience, realization, then he shared that knowledge, that wisdom, And so according to the Buddha's own experience and meditation and knowledge, that is what he found, and that is what he shared, and that is something that we are discussing. I think we are on a point where from that. And in order to understand that better, it is important to understand how those different delusion, affective emotions are rooted in that particular one mind, what we call ignorance. It's important to understand that. If we understand how all other affective emotions are rooted in that ignorance, how other affective emotions arises from that ignorance, then it will help us to understand, therefore, if we can get rid of that root ignorance that give rise to all other delusion, then we can get rid of all the delusion. Then we begin to find the possibility of getting rid of all those affective emotions completely, permanently, not just temporarily. Temporarily, I think we have some experience. Sometimes your mind is disturbed by some kind of you know, events, situation, experiences. Your mind is kind of disturbed. You know, your mind is frustrated or agitated or angry, or sometimes we have strong kind of desire, or under the strong desire, cravings, whatever one of those negative emotions. And when we try to meditate and apply certain meditation technique and practice, you know, after some time, 5, 10 minutes or half hour, then you begin to see, you know, the diminishing the intensity of whatever negative feeling you are having before. You can see that, before you're feeling very strong, intense, but now, you don't feel so intense. Your mind is starting to become more calm, more peaceful, and that negative emotion is not bothering you so much as it was bothering before, you know. Even though it hasn't completely gone, but it's much more kind of subtle, less intense. And we can see with that how that meditation helps to reduce the intensity of that negative emotion. That you can find with your own experience if you try to apply that. You know, you don't have to be a great meditator or great, enlightened or advanced to find that. If you try to apply some of the meditation you learn about how to, and if you do that, you can feel and find, uh, you know, um, I don't know, long ago, you can see how you can. But the thing is that while the delusion is not strong, intense, but still there, you can find still there. You can still find there, you know, you can still find there. It's not completely gone, you know. Down there is still there, you know. And then, something bigger, and then that emotion arises after some time, you know. And through certain, mindfulness meditation or concentrated meditation, we learn through our technique and meditation, we learn not to get involved with those negative emotions. We learn to watch them and not to get involved with those. And then, through that, again, such meditation practice, you know, you don't get caught up. Emotion arises and it goes, it comes and goes, but we don't hold on them. So it doesn't bother you so much, but it does bother you for a moment in a sort of way. But still with that meditation, still you are able to not to allow yourself to be overwhelmed by those emotions and dwell in those strong emotions, but still it arises when certain thought condition arises, those emotions arise, even if for short period, even if it is um, not so intense, but still it comes, goes. You know. So why? Because you know through meditations on loving kindness, compassion, or patience, we can reduce and overcome anger or hatred filled with feeling for a certain degree, but we cannot destroy them completely. We cannot destroy them completely unless we destroy the very root of those afflicted emotions. same, we might have a strong desire or attachment or craving, and through certain meditations on impermanent, meditation on impermanentness or object of the craving, attachment, desire, you know, meditating on unattractiveness, undesirable nature of that object, you know, unpleasant, undesirable, unattractive object of that object of attachment or desire or craving. We can reduce the craving, attachment, desire to a certain degree. You know, we can overcome to a certain degree, but again, we cannot destroy them completely until the root of those specific emotions completely eradicated or diminished or destroyed. So that is you know, experience of many people who engage in a different meditation practice. You know. But can the delusions? So with that, what you see is with also, you know, with so many people's experience who have engaged in those different meditations, they have this experience with their own experience. They have found how they can uh, reduce those disturbing afflictive emotions to a certain degree. You know, um, how they can minimize them, how they can destroy the intensity, how they can let it go quickly, not to hold on them for a long time. You know, but still, they haven't. Many of them haven't been able to get rid of all those afflictive emotions completely permanently. You know, and sometimes those meditators or practitioners have portions, and delusion can be really completely overcome, and they be completely get rid of. You know, that is one of the portion mark. You know, that in the past many meditators, as well as even in the moment, you know, that you know, sometimes they have that portion. You know, but you know, if you follow the Buddha's teachings and you know all others, many his follow that and such as Nagarjuna, you know, and others, um, they they explain with their own experience. They say those delusions can be completely overcome. Those delusions can be completely overcome, get rid of completely, destroy them completely, because they're all the delusion rooted in one. There's one root, and that root can be cut. That root can be destroyed. That fundamental ignorance. So therefore, delusion can be completely overcome permanently, and to achieve true lasting, what we call liberations from such affective emotion and suffering that comes from the such affective emotion. You know, so then one can achieve total nirvana or total liberation by overcoming those delusions completely. In relation to that, Nagarjuna in uh, later demonstrated us, you know, the total liberation or nirvana is when the state that is free or cessation of uh, the karma and the delusion. So when someone is free, totally free from the delusion and the karma, then he or she has achieved nirvana. You know, his state of mind is a nirvana, the cessation, total liberation. If that's such the, the cessation from such delusion, karma, if the cessation of the karma and the delusion is the nirvana, the peace, true lasting peace, then where does the delusion karma come from? How do it arise? Why there is delusion? Why there is karma being created? And then he says, that delusion and karma arises from, fabricating mind, projecting things on objects which is not there, fabricating and projecting, from such. That is where the delusion arises, Because my mind project, oh, that is nice, then attachment arises. That is bad, then aversion arises. That was useful to me, attachment arises. That was harmful to me, aversion, dislike arises. That can be harmful to me, aversion arises. That could be useful to me, attachment. I need that. I want that. Desire arises. So with such mind, we project, interpret, to the objects, all these different things, different qualities, different adjectives, different attributes. On the basis of that, then delusions such as attachment, anger arise. And where does that kind of fabricating mind or protecting mind arises? And such projecting conceptions or fabricating conceptions arise from the conceptions of ignorance, self-grasping ignorance. Self-grasping ignorance. So in that, what he explained is, we suffer because of our karma and the delusion, and such delusions arises because of and delusions such as attachment or anger. They arises because of our protections to the object, and and that arises. Such protections arises because of that fundamental ignorance, and therefore, then again, in that he says everything comes from that fundamental self-grasping ignorance. First, there is a self-grasping ignorance. On the basis of fundamental, on the basis of that self-grasping ignorance, then fabricating mind arises, or conception arises, or projecting mind arises. And due to that projecting and fabricating mind, then attachment and aversion or anger arises. And through that, many other delusions arises. Through that, we experience the pain and suffering. And we also create a karma to experience more suffering in the future due to those affected emotions. And then how can that fundamental ignorance, the root of all the delusions, the root of all the suffering, be destroyed? Can it be destroyed? Can it be eliminated? Can it be destroyed? And he said, of course, that fundamental ignorance, that grasping ignorance can be destroyed, can be cut, can be get rid of. By the wisdom relies in emptiness. By wisdom realizing selflessness or emptiness, through the wisdom realizing the emptiness or selflessness of the person and phenomena, that can cut and get rid of that fundamental ignorance. And by cutting that that root fundamental ignorance, then you will be able to cut such fabricating mind, projection mind, by not having a such projecting and fabricating mind, then there is no more delusion, such as anger and craving, and then all the other delusions that arise from there. So in that the last line, in Tibetan version, there are two versions, or and in one is, those that delusions and that fundamental ignorance dissolve into emptiness, and one is being destroyed by the wisdom realizing emptiness. If it is dissolved into the emptiness, then the delusions arising from the emptiness, they also disappear into the emptiness. Just like the ocean, the waves, the bubbles, whatever, it comes from the ocean, but also it dissolves into the ocean. The waves arise from the ocean, and they also dissolve into that. In the same way, delusion arises in the mind, it also dissolves into the mind. Delusion arises from the emptiness, it also dissolves into the emptiness. That is one way of understanding, and the other one, which is more, the other one is more kind of most of the commentaries is from the other one where that ignorance, fundamental ignorance and delusion can be cut by wisdom realizing the emptiness. And before we talk about, that selflessness and emptiness, because the wisdom that realizes that selflessness and emptiness is the antidote, is the key to destroy that all the delusion, the root of the delusion. First, then we need to understand how those delusion arises from that self-grasping ignorance. Of course, Buddha explained that, Nagarjuna explained that. But in some of our own experience, we have to understand with our own experience. By observing our own experience, by looking at our own experience, by watching and observing our own experience, when we have those different emotions arising, where they arise from, And so in relation to that, one of another great Indian master, Chandakiri, he explained, Nyamonkana Malij Sola. Hallelujah. bon assez dans la chaîne. Ça qui des chaînes là. Je chante dans la musique de la. So first there is grasping of the self, you know, the self that exists on its own side by itself. Due to that grasping of the self, because there is really self here, there's really self. There's really self from its own side by itself. There's strong grasping. And then we believe that is the, we, we believe in that there is a real self from its own side by itself. And then due to that, there's a grasping to that. Due to that grasping, then there is, attachment to that self. Attachment to that self. Attachment to that self. And due to that, based on that belief and grasping of the truly exist, the self, the true self that exists from its own side by itself, then, then there is my body, my body, my experience, my feeling, my mind. Then on the basis of that, that sense of mind comes, and then, we get attached to that. Then due to that, then there's grasping to my body, my mind. On the basis of that grasping, then there's attachment to my body, my mind. On the basis of that attachment to myself, my body, my mind, then whenever we feel there is any condition of that could hurt and harm myself, my body, my mind, then we have dislike, aversion towards that. Whenever we feel that object, that person, or that situation, or that object might is or might be harmful, not useful, hurtful, harmful to the self or to the body, my body, which we are very attached to, my mind, then, we started to dislike such objects. Then we started to develop aversion to that. We started to develop anger towards or towards such objects. That is, that is something that we, so this is exercise that we have to do. Check ourselves when we have any aversion or attachment. Does it really coming from there or not? As they explain, as the Nagarjuna says, as the Chandrakiri says, is it true or not? Is that true to our own experience or not? We try to analyze with our own experience, try to understand with our own experience, If I don't have strong aversion, if I don't have strong attachment to myself, my body, my mind, would I have so much dislike, aversion, or anger when I feel or when I think or feel that that object might be something harmful? Will I have a strong, if I don't have attached to that, will I have a strong dislike, aversion, anger or not? the way we feel at the moment. And also we think, will there be a strong attachment to my body and my mind if I don't have that sense of my body and my mind, the way I feel attached to it now? And will there be attachment to the self if there's no grasping of that self, you know? And will there be grasping of the self, you know, if you don't believe that there is a self, true self, or I, from its own side by itself? So this is part of the meditation and practice that we try to do, to really trying to understand that better. You know. So here we don't just try to understand just intellectually by reading book and this, but we actually look inside when we have those whatever attachment, anger, and going back, where does that arise from? Where does that attachment? Why I have that strong attachment? Why I have that strong aversion? Where did that come from? And then where you go back and back further, you know, and then see whether that is coming from the root, that on the basis of that grasping of the self. The grasping of that there is a self. Mhm. Another Indian master, you know, Lama Atisha, he says same thing, but he presents slightly different. But again, the same, you know, the way he presents is, you know, first there's a sense of independent I. On the basis of that, then there is a grasping of that independent self or I. And on the basis of grasping to that independent self or I, then we get attached to that. We get strong and cherishing to that. On the basis of that independent I, then, you know, there is independent other. On the basis of independent others, then, you know, to self, independent self, and those that are close to that self, grasping, attachment, and to others, you know, then we have, you know, more disliking or more aversion or, you know, less caring, less caring, um, less cherishing, you know, and so on. You know. So again, that is what they describe in their writing, in their teachings. But whether they're teaching, whether they're writing, whether that is accurate or not, we have to do our own exercise ourselves with our own experience. That is what the meditation is about. You know, it's not just learning what is in there and just being able to, you know, being able to say, oh, this and that, or he said, or she said that, or that, describe this and that. But to be able to confirm with our own experience is important. That is where the meditation practice come into. Is not just intellectual understanding or reading or understanding. Just with intellectual, it helps at the very beginning, but it really comes from your mind. Just intellectual dry understanding cannot really come from your mind. It has to go beyond intellectual understanding. And that means we have to put into practice. And so in this meditation, you know, that is what we try to do. Try to whenever we get attached to any object, whenever we lack some object, when we have a strong desire for some object, or whenever we dislike some object, whenever we have a strong aversion or anger towards some object, why am I having that aversion? Why am I having a strong attachment or desire to that object? Why? You know, and because there's whatever the fabricating or projecting mind. Because with one object we project, oh, it is a nice, it's a beautiful, it's good, I like it. It can be helpful, it can be beneficial, or has been all of that being or are being, or it could be, you know, I might need it, I might want it, you know, it will give, or it might give me happiness, cause of happiness. It might make my life more better, you know, convenient, easier, whatever, you know, those different projection, different thoughts that we project in that object. That is where it comes from. The attachment is there because, oh, that will give me happiness. That might give me happiness. Or it is giving me happiness. Or it give me happiness. Or it could be. So all these different projections of the mind, you know, and on the basis of that. On the other hand, when we dislike something, when we have aversion, because again, you know, our mind projects certain things, you know, oh, that has been harmful in the past, or might is harmful now, or might be harmful. That is not nice, you know, or might not be nice, you know, is something bad. It was bad, or it is bad, or it might be bad, you know. It might create problems. It created problem, is creating problem, or it might create problem. It created suffering, it is creating suffering, or it might create suffering. So then all those different thoughts of we project, we fabricate those different thoughts. On the basis of that, then on the basis of such thought conceptions, then that is where we have different feelings, such as disliking that object, having aversions, wanting to distance from that object, you know, and anger. Check it out. And then how do we have that projection? Why do we have those different projections in that object? You know, we have those projections because we believe there is object exists on its own side. You know? I believe that there is table from its own side as a table. There is first belief and grasping it as a table, existing by itself. And then on top of that, oh, that table is nice or not nice, good or bad, or that table can be useful or unuseful, or that table might be beneficial or unbeneficial, or that table might harm me or make me happy. So all this come on the basis because to begin with, that there is a belief there is a table as a table from its own side by itself. But if there is an understanding, there is no table from its own side, then there is no more projection. That table is nice or bad. Table is good or bad. Table is harmful or not harmful. If to begin with, there is no table as a table from its own side. So when there is no more grasping of that, then there is no more protection to that object. And so therefore, in some teachings, they use the term, you know, baseless, it means subtle, and rootless, you know. And so when there is no basis to protect good or bad, there's no more protection of good or bad. The protection of good or bad comes because there is a base. We believe there is a basis to protect is good or bad or meaningful, unmeaningful, whatever. But when there is no more that basis, then there is no more object to protect on anything, good or bad. And when we don't protect in such a way, good or bad, all these things, then there's no more. There's more basis to get attached to one and aversion to other, liking one and disliking others. And then there is, then there is no basis for attachment and anger to arise, and then all other delusion that arises on the basis of that. And when we understand that, then you begin to see, how delusion such as attachment and anger arises from such protection, and how that protection comes on the basis of belief that there is something from its own side, from its own side, and the grasping, belief and grasping the object to exist inherently or from its own side by itself as it is. So this is very important, not just to understand intellectually, but to really understand with your experience. And to understand with your experience, you really have to really look inside yourself when we dislike something, when we have aversion, anger. Where does it come from? And just find the follow, as Nagarjuna and all those masters. Is that the case or not? And looking with ourselves. Is that case why I'm having this aversion? Is that aversion, is that rooted in that projecting mind, that conception, projecting mind? And is that projection and mind or conception, is that rooted in that grasping, begin with or not? The same when we have strong craving or desire or attachment, where does that come from? Why I'm having that strong emotion, that feeling? And then trying to find out, is that rooted in that certain projection, certain concept, certain that with my mind, my conception projected certain things in that object. Is that why it is why I'm feeling that? Is that rooted in dormant? And that mind of projecting something, certain quality, certain attribute in that object that lead to the attachment, is that attributed or projected in object because there is a grasping belief that there is a that object there on its own side, on the basis. So this is the exercise, the meditation that one has to do to really understand whether the delusion are rooted in that ignorance or not. Otherwise, we can use different reasoning, logic. We can use this. We can agree, disagree. We can try to make all different points, but we will not really have profound, deep understanding unless we try to look within ourselves, and unless we try to really contemplate and meditate on that, and to see whether that is the case with our own experience. Once we are able to identify that, once we are able to connect and understand that with our own experience, then it doesn't matter when someone says whether that is make, whether the person is able to explain well or not, whether the person is able to not or not, doesn't matter, because you have, confirm yourself with your own experience. You have confirmed with your own experience. That is also very important to have that understanding in order to have a convictions that the delusion can be overcome permanently, and that liberation, so-called nirvana liberation, is possible. If we don't understand that, then you know, even we say liberation is possible, enlightenment is possible, it is just a dry word. It's just a dry word. You know, it doesn't come from your heart. You don't have the conviction. You know, we say because those masters said or Buddha said, and we believe in them, not necessarily because you have the conviction. You know, so in order to have that conviction that liberation is possible, nirvana is possible, into the suffering and the cause of suffering, the delusion is possible completely. In order to have conviction, all of that, and one of the important points is to understand how all these delusions are rooted in that fundamental ignorance. To have that profound understanding experientially, so that we have the total conviction in that, and with that conviction, and then with other analysis, then we can have then one can be able to develop total conviction that, yeah, nirvana and enlightenment is not something nice idea which out there which is not possible, but you really feel it is possible. It is possible. That one can feel is possible. And yeah, and when one feels possible, then as I mentioned before, then it gives you a lot of enthusiasm in your practice. Otherwise, it doesn't give you so much enthusiasm if you don't believe, or if you don't have the conviction, more than belief, if you don't have the conviction that is possible, then you don't have the same level of enthusiasm. So that is so in terms of the the verses where we are. So we are in verses where it describes about the practice of the wisdom, perfectional wisdom, or or special insight of the wisdom. Okay, and within that first, identifying what is that wisdom, what is that exactly wisdom. And before that, he talked about the importance of the method or skillful means and the wisdom, the importance of the practice of both method, which is love, compassion, both Siddha and others, and wisdom going together in hand to hand, implementing each other in union, without disregarding each of them. And he explained what is that method or skillful means, and then describing and identifying, what's the wisdom, what is the wisdom that we are talking about here. And after that, then he explained about engage in the meditation or practice of the special insight of the wisdom. So, so I think the one we have doesn't have the number, but yeah. Mm, so the one with the verse is the verse number 47. And of course, the translation, as I said, sometimes slightly different, but understanding emptiness of inherent existence through realizing the aggregate constitutes and thoughts are not produced is the described as wisdom. In the translation we have, what we call wisdom is thoroughly explained as an understanding of emptiness of inherent existence, the realization that the aggregate elements and the sense source are unproduced. So here is talking about the wisdom and the method of compassion. Then the wisdom is referring to a particular wisdom, understanding or realizing the emptiness. So when we talk about emptiness, as it is described here, we are talking about emptiness of inherent nature. Okay, emptiness of inherent nature. Just like you find in Has Sutra, you know, Avalokiteshvara mentioned it to Shariputra, Shariputra, any son or daughter of the lineage who wish to practice in this the perfection of wisdom, must behold and repeatedly and correctly the five aggregate also as empty of inherent nature. So when we find any, and then afterwards, then of course, you go on, and then in emptiness, there's no form, no feeling, no discrimination, and so on. So whenever you find the word emptiness in Buddhist scriptures, we are not talking about nothingness. We are talking about empty of something. Here, when we talk about empty of something, empty of inherent nature. Nothing exists inherently. Nothing can exist inherently or independently. Therefore, everything is empty of inherent nature, empty of independent existence. The five aggregates, the 12 elements, the 18 elements, and the 12 sense sources, they all are empty of inherent nature. They all are empty of inherent existence. Therefore, even though they are produced, but they are not produced independently. Even though they are not produced inherently. If something is being inherently existence or independently existing, it cannot be produced. If something is inherently existing, independently existing, that cannot be produced. Be produced means coming together of many cause conditions, something is being produced. Okay? Being produced means something that's not there before, and then due to coming together of certain cause and condition, then something is coming into existence, something is being produced. Okay? If something is independent existent, then it means it doesn't depend on other cause and condition. Something is inherently existent. It doesn't depend on other cause and condition. It has always been like that, inherently. If it has been produced, it has always been produced. It has not been produced, it will never be produced. Because that is inherently existent. So therefore, if something's inherently existent, then something cannot be newly produced. something is independently exists, something cannot be newly produced because, the only reason why something is being newly produced is because of there is change in cause and condition. Certain cause condition not there, now there is certain cause and condition coming together, therefore it produces some new result, some new existence, something. But if something's inherently or independently existent, then they don't depend on other cause condition, and there is no way other cause and condition coming together to produce that. And so therefore, it is empty. Therefore, there is no inherently or independently being produced, and therefore is empty of inherent nature, and the wisdom that that relies or understands all these phenomena to be empty of inherent nature, uh, that relies on understand that they are not inherently produced, independently produced, is the wisdom that we are talking about when we talk about wisdom and the method, this particular wisdom. And that wisdom, the wisdom that relies that emptiness directly, is the direct antidote towards all the afflictive emotions and the root of those afflictive emotions. So yeah, so that I think maybe today we'll. So any questions? Any questions? Yes, please, Mark. You want to?
When I first encountered these ideas about delusion, I made a big mistake. And I thought I would share this in case other people were making the same mistake. And that is, I thought that either you cut the root of your delusion or you didn't. It was sort of like you meditate, and then the root is cut all at once, and then you're at peace. And but now I realize that it's not just, I don't just have to cut completely this one root. I can do it a little bit at a time. And so now, 10 times a day or more, I feel suffering. Then I look at the suffering, kind of meditate on it briefly, and go, is this a result of delusion? And a lot of times, I go, my mind is making this up, and this could be absolutely ridiculous. Like, suppose I walk into the door of the Gompa, and I feel this sort of tension, unpleasantness, and I meditate on that, and it's like I realize I think maybe nobody likes me here. Okay, and then the next thought is that true? It could be true, but it could be my mind doing its ridiculous, ugly projection. Okay, so then I take it to the next step. I go, okay, in this instance, I'm going to be empty. I'm going to let go of who I am. I'm going to let go of who I think everyone else is, and just see what happens. And it's so successful that that it becomes this, practice, day in, day out. Feel suffering, look for the delusion, think if it's possible, then consider emptiness.
Okay, thank you for sharing. And I think I don't know other people, but I think I dislike you. Maybe that's why you were feeling tension when you came, when you saw me. Now you have to do more meditation. Let go yourself and let go of me. just joking. Any other questions?
This doesn't refer to the text, but your talk leading up to it. So in terms of mind states, how do you distinguish between attachment to a person that generates happiness for both and engaging in an act of bodhicitta?
I think to understand that better, I think to understand different state of the mind, such as attachment, anger, I think from Buddhist point of view, I think it is important to study the Buddhist psychologies about different state, different minds, mind mental factors. And in those, then there is a definition of each of those minds, the functioning of such mind, where does that mind arise from, what is the cause of that mind, what are the results of those. So then we will be able to kind of really know when we say attachment or anger, what we are really talking about it, because sometimes we are using the word and everyone has their own definition of that in their mind. And we all might be having a very different definitions what that attachment is. And that is why I think you brought one of the questions in the past, and of course of many other people, where they think attachments are needed for the children's growth of in a relationship. But you can use that in a different term, but not the way we use attachment as a negative emotions, as I mentioned before, with the children growth and also in other relationships, the affections, the true love, compassions, and expressing that through touching it, keeping the child, touching the bodies and so forth, and all of that, So, so in the Buddhist description of the attachments, one, that mind is mistaken mind because that mind projects more quality into the object than what is there. When you have attachment, you project more quality in the object than what is there. Same with anger. I forgot the name. One of the very well known, I think, is known as almost like Western pioneer of some kind of psychology, some Adam. And he already passed away. He had written many books. And so in one of his prisoner of your anger or hatred, and he shared, according to his research or his finding, when people are angry, more than 90% is their mind project. More than 90%, that's very high. And that was what he shared when they had Life and Minds conference about different emotions. And that is his expertise, and just in Buddhist, same way, just as your anger project more negative quality into the object than what is there, your attachment project more positive qualities into the object than what is there. That is why a lot of time in a relationship, when your attachment is gone, then you feel like that person has been deceiving you. As long as your attachment, you don't feel that they're deceiving. But when your attachment gone, all the things you project in that person is no more there, because your attachment is no more there. And all these qualities, your attachment projected there, now it is no more there because your attachment no more there. You see differently. And you feel like that person has deceived you. What is that person sometimes never deceive you? This is who they are. But at the very beginning, your attachment projected so many things. And you believe that was he or she. And when your attachment decrease over the time, then you begin to see differently. So that is, so one, your attachment is mistaken because it's project more into that than object, and that is what attachments, the functioning with attachment is, it makes your mind more kind of restless instead of calm and peaceful. On the other hand, and then it is always, attachment always arises from that ignorance, whereas compassion, bodhicitta mind, it comes from wisdom, not from the ignorance. And also in compassion and bodhicitta mind, there's no exaggeration of quality in the object. Instead, whatever you see their pain, suffering, you just recognize and feel that. And, so, and the result of attachment is pain and suffering, disappointment. In true love, compassion, bodhicitta, there is no expectation. With the attachment, there is a lot of expectation from the other. There is a lot of expectations, a lot of conditions. So yeah, yes. Mm. I think so. Evan? Oh, I think, yeah. Yes, the question.
Online. Geshe, I have a question. So if there's a kind of setting that repeatedly happens to me, so for example, I'm doing a job, somebody comes up out of nowhere, tells me how to do my job better, even though that person's not my boss, not somebody who normally works with me, I get upset. But if that kind of thing repeatedly happens, clearly, as you said, it's not about, it is in part about my attachment to that other person as inherent. But it's also more than that, because if the thing is happening to me repeatedly, then it really is coming for me, truly, right? How do I move from letting that thing go one issue at a time to letting the root of that go?
I think the point is, when something happens repeatedly, and then or sometimes we might think it's not my projections, it's nothing to do with my projections. And sometimes definitely there could be something from the other person, as well. Someone might, make a mistake, or, treat in certain ways, which is not correct. But but again, one of the things, and not to kind of discard that, and just kind of, of course, sometimes when that kind of issue happens, we have to raise the issue, wherever is needed, so that that it doesn't happen, that that people doesn't suffer, and that thing doesn't get worse, and to have more clarity that. But at the same time, the point is, how can we do that without our mind being agitated? You know, it's all about that. You know, the main thing is, you know, when someone is doing something harmful or injustice or something to yourself or someone else or anyone, of course, if there is a way we can stop or reduce such harmful actions, we have to raise the issue, we have to bring that. But the point is, how can we do that with calm, peaceful mind and, if possible, with a compassion? Not only compassion for those who have been injustice, but also for the compassion who is doing that injustice, you know, to others. So that is the main thing, you know. And so, in order to not be agitated or upset and angry, then one is meditating on emptiness of yourself, meditating the emptiness of that person itself, meditating on the emptiness of that whatever emotion that we are experiencing, whatever kind of agitated mind, restless mind, anger or whatever that mind might be, frustration, whatever. Trying to do meditate on that again, as I said, can be helpful, beneficial. And again, as Mark explained, we might not be able to get rid of all the ignorance, the delusion completely now, because that takes the time and practice. But just by doing that practice and meditation, the intensity of that feeling, negative feeling that we had before, can be reduced, can be minimized, and so by reducing that strong or intensity of that feeling, then we can bring more calm and more peace mind. And then out of that more peace and calm mind, then if we can try to generate the bodhicitta mind by thinking, he or she is doing that because he or she must be suffering. If he or she is not suffering, normally they will not act in that. And through that understanding their own suffering, then maybe whatever issue we might bring, then we can try to bring. But that would be just my suggestion. Okay. This will be the last.
Thank you.
Thank you for letting me ask a question. Actually, a follow-up to that question. I mean, what happens if you understand that that person is suffering, and that's your own trauma, you're kind of projecting. My mother did the same thing. It's driving me crazy. Any thoughts on, like, if you then have to choose, like, okay, I know this person is suffering, but like, I don't have to be present for that suffering. I don't have to be part of that. Maybe this is resonating with some people. Like, what's your advice? What is your comment on that? My name is Andrew.
Yeah. Andrew is my close friend, my hiking partners, friends. Yeah, I think understanding and feeling others' pain and suffering is important, but at the same time, we don't want that someone's pain and suffering overwhelming us. Because if we don't have the tools to deal with that, and if we are being overwhelmed by that pain and suffering, then it makes things worse. Not only you are unable to help that person, but then now you have to take care of yourself, and and so therefore, I think I mentioned in one of the classes in the past during this Sunday, I think a few weeks ago, where Lama Tsongkhapa explains, if we have the wisdom, understanding the emptiness of the suffering itself, emptiness of that person, emptiness of yourself who is suffering, and or who is feeling that pain and suffering, and also the other person who is suffering. If you see that, then you will not be overwhelmed. And so that is why we are talking about the importance of both wisdom and compassion. Sometimes if you don't have the wisdom, if we just have the compassion and feel others' pain and suffering, we could be overwhelmed by that. But if you bring the wisdom into that, then that wisdom helps us. While you feel someone's pain, compassion, some out of your compassion, while you feel their pain and suffering, you recognize their pain and suffering, you understand and feel their pain and suffering. But if you started to feel more overwhelming, then you try to meditate on emptiness of the person who is suffering and yourself who is experiencing the effect of that, the emptiness of yourself and the emptiness of suffering itself. And by doing that, then it will help you not to be overwhelmed by feeling that feeling of pain so strong and so concrete and so overwhelming. So yeah, that will be my. Okay, so if you have questions, maybe next time, please bring it next time. Okay.
May the naked find clothing, the hungry find food. May the thirsty
Water and delicious drink. May the poor find wealth and those with sorrow find joy. May the forlorn find hope, constant happiness and prosperity. May there be timely rains and bountiful harvest. May all medicine be effective and wholesome prayer bear fruit. May all who are sick with ill quickly be free from their ailment. Whatever disease they are in the old, may they never occur again. May the frightening cease to be afraid, and those bound be free. May the powerless find power, and may people think of benefiting each other. As long as space remains, for as long as sentient beings remain, until then may I too remain to dispel the miseries of the world. Thank you very much. And again, I think it dispel one ignorance today that I have to have the mic on so they know that what we are reciting, where we are, so they can. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Geshe.
Geshe.